right, everybody. I'm so excited. I got this lady on the channel, man. I don't know what to do, my friend. Oh my God. Let me tell you what she said. She said, hey, man, is that your personality? I said, man, I guess so. I do it every day because oh man, I'm interviewing. This week I got 6, 7 interviews. People, I'm finding these people and they got these stories that they want you to hear. This Black history, because, you know, some of what happens is that sometimes, you know, we sometimes say, hey, we don't really get to tell our story. You know, everybody else is telling it and so on and so forth. And so not no more. Not no more. This is what I'm doing here. You know, I'm Anthony Brogdon. I'm an ordinary guy trying to do something a little extraordinary right now with you, my friends, and I'm excited that you're watching me. I'm super excited that this sister is on the channel. Watch, she gonna knock it out the box. You're gonna be tripping. Coming from that, let's say, little town, so to speak, as she is, with all this history that she knows, and it's her life's calling. Watch. So, but before I bring her on, you know what I want you to do is hit the subscribe button. It's free. I don't ask no information. All it does is let me know you like me, because I like you, and whatever it is, I'm gonna keep liking you anyway. My numbers is up. I want to be at 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. How about this, my friends? I'm coming, and next year I'm going on the road. So I'm going to Kansas City, Kansas, with my own festival. I called it Freedom Quindaro. It's a Black History festival where, if you don't know, look at the video on the channel. Them slaves out of Missouri walked across the Missouri River, wasn't that bad, wasn't that deep, and it had froze, and got to Quindaro, and they told that man, don't come over here looking for me because I'm shooting back. I'm had enough of you. I had enough of you. They got there. The guy I interviewed on the channel, his great-great-grandfather did it and owned a business when he got there and got a little bit of money and raised his family. He said, man, I ain't going back, man. No, that ain't happening. So I was pretty intrigued with the story. So I want to go there. I want about 1,000 of y'all to come. It's May 27th, 28th, 29th. In Kansas City, Kansas. The town is called Quindaro. And I'm doing 2 or 3 others of those. I'm gonna make it happen. Y'all will hear about it. Come check me out. It's really reasonable price. You know, I'll cover your food and stuff like that. Your punch. I ain't providing no alcohol, but there will be moonshine nearby though. you can bet on that. And we're gonna hear some of that jazz, because that jazz come out of that Kansas City, Missouri area. So check me out on that. Other good things is happening. You know, I've gone international. I got people around the world that have come on the channel, and I'm getting more of them. We're going to hear from all over the diaspora. How about that? And all over the America. How about that? Like what the sister about to tell you. Check it out. I give it to you straight, no chaser, my friend. Put a little ice in it if you want some ice, some lemon, some limes, whatever, to intoxicate you with this good Black history. That's what I'm trying to do. How about this? You know, I'm serious about the game on what I do in this history. I'm a filmmaker. I'm that serious. I put 2 years of my life in this movie. It's a documentary on the rise of Black business in America. It's streaming on Amazon. It's called Business in the Black. And if you want to be in business, that's where you want to be, in the black, not in the red, in the black. That's why I named it such. It's good. Slaves who went to college and Black millionaires in the 1800s. I found the guy that would be worth $20 million in today's terms in the 1800s. I got Black business people who were in business with white folk. Oh my God, you got to watch it. All right, it's streaming on Amazon. I went the next level and I wrote this book, Black Business Book. It's like the movie, but it's got more facts. Somebody sent me a message. They said it's the most comprehensive, easy to read Black history book that they have run across. Because I ain't gonna lie to you, don't tell nobody I told you, but I'm not no big reader. All them big books, shoot, man, I'd rather watch it on YouTube or something. And that's how I did it on the book. Very easy to read, thorough. I number the facts so you and your friend, both of y'all get a copy. You get two of them, give them to somebody else, and y'all can go over the facts individually and say, hey, man, have you read fact number 91, 101, 121, 191? It's going to blow your mind. I had a guy tell me, said, man, I never heard this. I said, well, I got the link in the back of the book where I found it. Every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. You buy 10 books, I donate one to a school. I write the letter in your honor. And how about this? If you don't learn nothing new out of my book, somehow you know all this, I give you money back. A book with a money back guarantee. Boom, shakalaka, there it is. Get your copy of this, and it's very reasonably priced. I got a bunch of them in boxes in my basement, and I don't need them no more. I read it. I wrote it. I did the research. I want you to have it, my friend. So get you a copy of this book, please. Now, let me say this. Y'all hear me use this term strong a lot. Strong is my favorite word. I had somebody say, man, you got to come up with a word that you like. And it took 30 seconds to come up with the word strong. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the sister on the channel today. She's a strong lady. That's what everybody tell me about her. Come on, sister, introduce yourself. Let's get it on. Strong Inspirations.
Why, thank you, Brother Anthony. I'm honored to always talk on my favorite topic, especially when it pertains to the African American community. For those of you that don't know my name is Rita Fuller Yates, and I'm actually by title a lifestyle expert, and I specifically remain that title because I speak on so many different topics, and primarily to the African American community. We need a voice. We need somebody that we can trust when it comes to the content that we share.
I love it.
And I believe that so much of what we've learned up until this time wasn't talking to us.
Yes.
So I've taken on the responsibility to become a lifestyle expert so that I could speak on different topics. And today it just so happens one of the top of my favorite topics is to talk about Black history.
I love
specifically
it.
Local Black
before
history.
that, you know, I got to talk about you for a second, though. You've seen one of them videos. How you get to Columbus, Ohio?
So my family is from Virginia and Tennessee.
Okay.
Primarily, and my father's side of the family is from Kentucky. But what's unique about my story is we've been in Ohio since the late 1800s. So at the turn of the century, we were living as our free lives in the city of Columbus, working actively in the communities, have been here for over 100 years.
Sounds like it.
So we were here before the Great Migration of people moving from the South.
Okay.
So we are African American descent, but we're also of Catholic religion.
Okay.
So I have a unique story.
So where you said Virginia? How did they get their freedom? Do you go that far back, and then how did they get to Ohio? Did somebody escape?
No, so we've been free for a long time, fortunately. And that's some of the story that I wanted to share today about the African American story, how we all believe that we come from one place and one time period. But even in the example of my family, we've been free since the 1830s. Even prior to that is all that I can prove. And my grandfather was a part of the Civil War. We have been, like I said, in Ohio since 1880s.
Okay. When you say he was a part of it, he was he a soldier? You think he did something behind the lines before that, or what?
Yeah, he was actually a Buffalo soldier.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
so,
Hold on, boy. I'm gonna stay on you just a second, though.
okay.
In Columbus, how did you like Black history so much? How did you know what? How did this become your calling?
So I actually majored in history from Ohio University in 1991. And I've always been a history buff, not so much as facts and dates, but the story. I've
I got
always
you.
loved to hear a good story. And when I majored in history, wasn't interested in history because it didn't really pertain to me. But I
Okay.
didn't know that for many years. I didn't understand why I would love certain things about history, but never wanted to gravitate to teaching it or making it another level of research. But in research, we found, and of course, his gravesite actually he's identified as a Buffalo Soldier in Springfield, Ohio.
They had Buffalo Soldiers in Ohio.
Yes.
Because see, I thought all the Buffalo Soldiers was out west.
Oh no, no.
Yeah, I thought they were out fighting the Indians and that kind of thing.
Well, that's what allowed for them to be named the Buffalo Soldiers.
Exactly.
But a lot of them still maintained activity in the military after they would leave the Civil War, or even after
I
that
got you.
time period.
I got you.
So then they still would do work for the military,
I got you.
but they were still named and labeled as Buffalo Soldiers.
Well, you know, really, all that was they didn't want to call the Black people soldiers. They gave them their own identity and called them Buffalo Soldiers. That might be how that goes.
It may have been. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got a guy on the channel. He talks about Buffalo Soldiers, and you know, on one hand, I had to ask him, is that all that proud of a tradition only in this regard? Some of them guys were formerly enslaved. They got their freedom and they said, hey, we're going to do something to help fight the war, fight the country. And then they sent them out west to fight the Indians, which were under the attack of the US government, all because they wanted their land.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what being Black is. That's what's so great about our history and studying how it is that we still to this very day are being sort of coursed into believing that we're getting somewhere.
Yes.
All because they create these processes that makes us feel like we're doing something.
Right.
Even getting us engaged in the military in the first place.
Yes.
I mean, for slaves to be in the military was supposedly illegal.
Yes.
They weren't supposed to have Negroes or slaves working in the government or for the war.
Yes.
But of course, at the end of the hour, they needed more bodies to help solidify the war.
That's right.
So what was the easiest thing to do?
That's right.
And then many times the other part of the story that's not told is the white generals would have their slaves with them in battle.
That's right. On both
Literally
sides, in
right
some
next
respects too.
Sorry, what you say?
On both sides.
Yes, on both sides. They would literally use their slave to help, feed their guns or in any point of service. I mean, from that, of course, is what they've been told in the history books.
Yeah.
The reality is they more than likely was on the front line at that point too.
That's right. Now, how did you find that out? How did in your research, where did you go to find out that he was in the service?
He actually is identified under the Buffalo Soldier regime. And once I identified him, everything came up from the Buffalo Soldiers because he was already a part of the history.
Yeah, but I'm asking, where did you see that at? And what kind of document in Army archives or what?
Ancestry, because I did my family tree.
I got you.
And then once I found him, you start researching the
I
individual,
got you.
and
I
then
got you.
stuff starts coming up.
You all have a rich history in Ohio. Were there a lot of blacks in Ohio where they were at the time?
In Ohio, there was in 1800 there was 337 free black people living in Ohio. So that could give you a good idea that, of course, we got to think Ohio was an open opportunity for what it meant to be free. Before the Ohio, there was the Northwest Territory that allowed for Ohio to be created, but there was nothing that existed before Ohio that identified what it meant to be free. So come 1800, we had an opportunity as a state to say, look, what does it mean for black people to live, and for them to live free, and for them to live amongst white people? That was what Ohio was conditioned to create.
Oh, really?
And that's really what set us apart from any other state in the nation, because we were asked that question and we were determined to become the example for the rest of the nation on what does it mean for black people to live amongst us.
Because Ohio is close to a southern state, isn't it? I mean, is it a state apart before you start getting in below the Mason-Dixie line and slavery and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was a great access from the south and getting to the north and to get to Canada.
Okay.
It was easy access.
Okay.
And that was why the influx of slaves moved to Ohio when, of course, we became a state in 1803.
Okay.
Now, that made it interesting for Ohio because we were wanting to be different than how the South was. We didn't want slavery. We wanted people to have a different way of thinking. We wanted people to love. Yeah, that was why a lot of white people started moving to Ohio, because it was a different way of thinking. Not to mention they got free land.
Was there a religious component, or is there one guy who was the governor or something like that brought all this on?
No, it was the new way of thinking. You got to think we were from the time of 1616, let's just say, to the 1800. They had a couple hundred years of learning what does it mean to be a slave, and white people learned to process what is it that they didn't like about slavery. So the abolitionists started becoming the movement, started becoming really popular among Quakers and Methodists. And they started getting together and started saying, look, we don't like this. We don't like slavery. We don't like the way black people are being treated. We have to think of things differently. So they started setting up camps and white people started moving to Ohio to be the example for what does it mean to live among free black people. But then in 1804, they created the Black Laws, which was another way to control the influx of black people that were moving into the state.
Okay, so what's the law?
So the law was, look, you're free, but now in order for you to live here, you have to have $500 that's been, that you've been able to save up for one way or another. And you have to be solidified from a citizen of the community, a popular person from the city, somebody who believed in you. So that stifled a lot of black people from moving here because, again, they needed approval to live amongst the white people. But you had to keep in mind the white people that started moving here, started bringing free black people, which really were, like, in my research has been, they had slaves down south, and they would again form relationships with these slaves and their families. And for the sake of freeing a legacy, they would bring one of the black children of the slaves and have them work as a servant up north. And that servant was now free. And that was just that white family giving back to that black legacy.
Oh, really? Okay, that's a unique story. Now, I know that Cincinnati is just across that river from Kentucky. And if they got across the river, like I talked about in Kansas, then that was a free area for them, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Well, all of Ohio was free.
Yeah. But I mean,
As soon as
Cincinnati
they
was
crossed
one of those
Kentucky,
border cities.
yeah, I mean, that was really one of the most popular cities in Ohio. I think it was the Randolph Plantation for free
Okay.
blacks. And I wanna believe he was a prominent black man that would take in basically other runaway slaves and help them to freedom.
Okay.
And so
Now
that would
what
happen a
was your
lot of
family?
times here
They
too.
they were in Columbus area?
It was in between Columbus and Cincinnati.
Okay. Now, what was the dynamic of Columbus? What was the attraction? Was there some industry that brought them there that, helped them have a way of life, or just this attitude of the freedom?
The attitude of the freedom, and again, these white people that came here were not afraid of black people as long as there weren't a lot of us. So
Oh,
they were really people who wanted to give opportunities to black people because they saw the good of us. But I believe, just based on my own personal opinion about the influx, I think there still was some intimidation factors there.
sure.
So as long as they could help develop one or two of us, they would do it with all of their hearts, because what we learned is that those black families that would move in with those white families or lived with them until they were matured, that white family would still take with them, that would still take care of them, and they would become somewhat of a unit. And what we learn is that those black people became somewhat of the leaders in the black community,
Oh,
because
really?
they had an advantage over a lot of the black people because those white families would help them.
Sure, sure. Now, what city? Like, now, what developed Columbus? How did your people get to Columbus in that regard? Because
My particular
did Columbus have an industry that your parents did?
So what makes Columbus unique is, again, we have to keep in mind that we were always free,
Yeah.
which meant that there was a point in time where many intellectual black people would move here for the opportunity to be educated either at Ohio University,
Oh,
which was
really? Okay.
a school that allowed for African Americans to be educated, was the first Ohio school in Ohio. And then in the late 1880s, Ohio State University started giving opportunities to African Americans. Now, they wasn't allowed to live on campus, but they were allowed to attend the school. So a lot of professionals started moving here for the opportunity of education. And then that led to them living here
I
and
got you.
creating social communities and social fraternity organizations to this very day that they
Oh, I
started.
got you. Now, yeah, I got to bring this slant. Were there racist incidences in let's say in Columbus, as we focus on that? Maybe a lynching or any of those kind of things?
Oh yeah, there's always racism in Columbus. I think I was born and raised here, right?
Yeah.
And when I think about Columbus, I always felt that we were unique, where I didn't feel the hate
Oh,
that
really?
no, I didn't feel the hate that many people felt about being black. And one of those reasons why is because we had a real strong black community. Or if you lived on the east side of Columbus, where much of this history was derived from,
Okay. That's the
you
black
walk,
neighborhood.
it's the black neighborhood. It's
Okay.
called Bronzeville.
Bronzeville. Okay.
Yeah, it's Bronzeville.
Yeah.
This particular community I was born and raised in, if you grew up in it, you grew up with a sense of confidence that you didn't know why you had it. And it primarily came from the people that was around you, who developed a sense of telling you what the essence of this community was. and who the people were that helped build it. And I didn't know, of course, when you're in it, you don't know what's happening until you're a mature adult and you're able to step back and recognize what was given to you versus what wasn't given to you. Community was given to me. I always understood that it took the neighbor to help when there was a disadvantage in our house. I always understood that sometimes we had to wait till Friday to pay the carry out for our bill that he allowed us to have through the week. Those was the sense of that community. But one thing I didn't learn was history. I didn't learn that the community I lived and was born in was basically established by a Black man named James Poindexter.
Oh, okay.
Now, of course, there was a Poindexter village that was named after him.
But that's a community. What was that?
It was one of the national projects that was created under FDR in 1940.
Okay.
And it was one of the first ones. It was, see, Columbus, keep in mind, with us being the first state, with us being the first state to have slaves, with us being the first state of many reasons, we became a test state to this very day. Many products, many processes, a lot of educational research is done here specifically in Columbus because we created that history of being the first in things and trying things out. And slavery happened to be one of them, and being free was definitely.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now,
and so we're different. We're a little different.
Yeah. What's Poindexter's story? What's his story?
So James Poindexter came here in 1830s. He came here as a free man from Virginia. His father was a white man who his family became politicians. His mother was a slave, but a educated slave. And he became free. He was, I guess I should say, he was born free. He was never born a slave because at some point his mom became free, and then that freed him. Then he moved to Virginia. When he married and moved to Virginia, and he was a barber, a minister, and he was the first African American on the Columbus School Board in 1881.
Really? Okay.
He also established the first African American Methodist church here. And we named the village that was established by the government as a test project for African Americans because of the influx of the migration of Black people that moved here from the South at the turn of the century. They had nowhere to move to. They had nowhere to live. They wanted opportunities. There was a lot of opportunities here because of the railroad, and they needed ready bodies to build the city. And of course, they didn't mind Black people doing the labor. So they had to live amongst us, but they found districts and ways for us to be separate from them.
I got you. It's always some of that.
Which was pretty typical around the nation.
Yeah.
Which allowed for us to create our own communities and our own leaders, which became what we know now as Bronzeville.
Now, do you know where the name Bronzeville comes from? Because Chicago has a Bronzeville also.
Yeah, actually, that's where it came from. Our mayor there, that particular community has had a mayor when it first started, and his name was Mayor Scarborough. And the story is that they visited Chicago, and learned that there was a community called Bronzeville, and learned the philosophy of the community, and they wanted to bring that same philosophy here.
Okay.
And so that was why they named it Bronzeville. And there's another state that has a Bronzeville. I want to say Tennessee. So it's
Yeah,
three
okay.
of
I
us
don't
that
know.
has a Bronzeville.
I know Chicago. Now, what's the main street? What's the street that all the Black businesses thrived on in Bronzeville?
Long Street and Mount Vernon.
Okay.
And that is really the two streets that created Bronzeville.
It is what did Columbus have a riot though? A race riot?
Yeah, we had riots often, primarily because we were a part of Ohio State University. So when I was talking about the influx of professionals that moved here and remained here, primarily they came here to attend Ohio State.
Right.
And then that offered them an opportunity to stay here to create the Black communities that
Right.
we live in today.
Right.
But then that also created a lot of competition. So where there's competition, after the war, these African Americans. So let me tell you this story that I think is pretty unique.
Right.
Tuskegee Airmen.
Okay.
So they have a story here in Columbus because they had a home here at the Lockbourne Air Force Base in 1946 through 1948. And not only did they have an Air Force Base where it was an all black Air Force Base at the time, which was pretty unique. Those particular men would also reside here in a community called Hanford Village. And that community it's a historical community, a national historical community to this day, became a prominent area for professional men, not only the Air Force men, the Tuskegee Airmen, but many doctors and other professors, other professionals.
I got you. What other stories do you tell? Because you give tours, don't you?
I do, but my biggest fight, I'm writing a book specifically like you're doing, just to get the resource and information out.
Yeah.
But I'm more of an advocate of history. I'm more about making sure that we understand its value so that we don't look at it as we did as children. I think white people look at history, as they do a lot of things, from a perspective of facts and knowledge. And I don't believe that we look at history from that perspective. We look at history as a part of our life. It's a story. It's something that we can touch. It's something that shouldn't be that deep that we have to go look at. Like you said, I don't like to read all those deep books. Well, it shouldn't be that deep anyway. It's a story.
I got you. I love it.
So I'm an advocate of changing the mindset of how we share history and not making it so deep, so that, of course, the Black people, for one, that's who I normally try to teach, is listening. And that we change the idea of, even, we almost need a new term of not even calling it history, because that's such we've learned that term and now we categorize it from one perspective, when we know there's a whole nother perspective that just hasn't been given the space. And when we learn history, it's more storytelling. It's, we learned it because ideally oral history was passed down to us, right?
I love it.
And that was our history.
Yes.
And so when someone tells us, well, back in 1937, there were 30,000 people, that's not interesting to me. What's interesting to me is what was happening to somebody's mother in 1837 that was affected by those 30,000 people.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So
what's your take on this critical race theory stuff that they're talking about now?
It's just another excuse not to be honest.
Yeah,
just
that's
like
right.
I'm saying.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just like, again, it's another way to speak above history so that you can continue to not be interested in history. See, as long as they share history the way that they've always done it, we're never going to be interested in it. And that's intentional. They do that intentionally because they know how we think and how we learn. Once they break it down, the storytelling and it making more sense to the Black community, we're going to learn it. And then guess what's going to happen? We're going to know a lot more about ourselves. And then guess what's going to happen? We're going to have more confidence. And then guess what's going to happen? So they don't want us to know ourselves. They
Is
want to
there a
keep it
story that you relate
complicated.
that they tell differently that you tell?
I tell the truth. They tell facts and weave in the truth. See, facts is facts. Who said that that's really facts?
I got you.
So somebody, and I always talk about these weird historians that went to this room somewhere in this building and came out with these books and said that this is history. Who said that? Let me go in that room with you. And I bet you I come out with a whole different story.
But again, I like to say, is there a story, a Columbus story that they tell that you tell differently? Like something happened and they say, okay, well, really it went this way. And you're like, no, man, come on, it didn't go that way.
I think when we're talking about even the name of our city, Christopher Columbus,
okay, there
being
you
named
go.
after Christopher Columbus is a unique story, considering that Christopher Columbus is a much hated man to the Black community.
Oh,
and
really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and what we've learned about Christopher Columbus is how he treated the Haitians and the
I didn't know
slaves.
that.
Oh my, yeah, you just Google Christopher Columbus and they tell the whole story about he was not a bright man for starters. It took him 4 or 5 trips to even try to identify a particular place. He was supposed to go try to find another part of the world and end up in a whole nother part of the world because he got lost.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, he's not a bright man. He was given opportunity that he shouldn't have been given. He was actually impregnating young Haitian slaves, him and his brothers, raping them.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. And it's proven. He left a diary and he wrote for 6 months on one of his trips, and that diary is public knowledge now. And now that we know this is another thing about history that I like to talk about. See, I'm more of an advocate of history than I am a historian.
I got you.
So one of the things that we're held responsible for is history can be in one era, I should say, we can acknowledge history from one perspective.
Let me ask you this: Are you in taking some effort to try to have Columbus rename itself?
So the city name has been a challenge because it's a part of who we are. It's embedded in who we are. Now, one thing we have done, and I'm proud to say, 2 things we've done. We've had the Christopher Columbus statue removed from City Hall.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that was an accomplishment.
I'm sure.
And then secondly, we're working on some type of iconic statue or artifact on the State House lawn that's here in Columbus. Because on the State House lawn, there's a representation of every culture, including natives, women, suffrage, any element, any person is represented on that State House lawn, but African Americans.
Is it? Oh my God.
We don't have not one. The only thing we have that represents us, there's a historical marker on the back part of the lawn that talks about the Underground Railroad. And it sits right by a parking garage that looks like it's underground, like it's going underground. And that's all that we have that represents that Black people live here in Ohio.
And so, may I ask, you brought this out or other people have and you take it?
Well, I noticed it because I'm a walker and I live downtown.
Yeah.
And I'm just walking and, I'm a reader when I'm looking at walking.
I love it.
And I just started crying because I was like, wow, we've been here 200 years and we can't get a statue. I mean, so then I started working on, I even found a company to buy the statue. It's still not up. That's how much of a fight it is for our story to be a part
I love
of
it.
the Ohio
I
story.
love it.
They want to act like we are a part of the story because they tell people, oh yeah, black people, black people, black people. But they don't put that stuff in writing. And see, that would be, if you put a statue of black people on the State House lawn, that's putting it in writing.
So you we ain't gonna stay on it much longer because you got me going here. So, oh my God, yeah, we went on a whole nother angle and got here. So you got an effort to do this though? I mean, is there a petition and all that other stuff, and you're trying to do something with a law and all that?
Yeah, we've been working on it for 2 years. We have a state representative, Marshall Craig's office involved. We've called Joyce Beatty's office. We've spoke with her secretary. Everybody understands it needs to be done. Yeah. The problem is everybody understands Ohio is not trying to change the way they see black people visually. They trying to act like it's changing, and they putting Black Lives Matter on signs that can be removed. Look at that. Look at that. That can be removed. You got to make sure we pay attention to that, because they're not doing anything that is of permanent structure. Permanent structure would be like the statue. You know what I mean? They ain't gonna be spending no $300,000 on the statue and taking it down next week.
Is there somebody, some lady or guy that you would want the statue to be of, or just a black person?
You know, we've talked about that, and I believe at this point it just needs to be an icon. It doesn't really need to be a figure. It doesn't need to be a person. And even if we did a big BLM, Black Lives Matter statue, something that still just says, oh yeah, black people live here in Ohio. But there's nothing to this day. And a lot of it, you know, Anthony, is
I got you. I love it.
Black people we don't fight. A lot of us just, even when it comes to our history, that's why I fight for us to make simple history. Make history simple is what I call it. And history that we could touch. Because for so long, history was overcomplicated intentionally. And so now we got the opportunity to have history in our hands. It's our job to learn it, though.
I love
That's
it.
the part.
You know, I came up with one. How about this? And I don't live there, so I don't know how I could do it. But Roswell, Georgia, is named after a guy who was the overseer of the plantation that conducted the Weeping Time slave auction. People who might not know that story, the guy who owned Weeping Times owed a lot of money from gambling debts. He had 500 enslaved black people. In 2 days, he sold 250 of them. And it rained the whole 2 days. I mean, it's very dysfunction, the way he broke up the families and so on and so forth. Very brutal and everything. The guy who held the auction and who was his overseer was a guy by the name of Roswell King. That city is named in his honor. There are a lot of those that have been around America that are now getting attention. And
now, was
you're
that
bringing
because
attention
that
to
was he primarily the biggest part of the city? Was that plantation?
Because it wasn't Roswell, Georgia, where the plantation, the guy's name is Roswell. But the plantation, I want to say, was in Tennessee.
Oh.
Yeah, but he moved to Roswell, probably got a lot of money and owned, and now they named the town in his honor. And he's the one that helped sell 250 slaves in 2 days. It's called Weeping Times. And the only reason why I know that connection is a video on the channel, everybody. I interviewed a guy that tells us.
Is there any way that are they in any process of trying to change the name?
I doubt it. The only thing I've done, I did tweet that once, and I haven't done any more with it. But I probably will kind of at least try to let some of the powers down there know that that's what the city is named after. And there's a lot of that going on. I mean, the French were very much into slavery, and even here in Detroit, we had some monuments or that we've taken down, and also the convention center was named after a guy who was real racist, so on and so forth.
Well, what do you think we can do as a community to avoid being so passive?
Well, first of all, you're talking about it, and you made the steps, and you're telling somebody, and you haven't let it go, and it's just going to continue to pick up momentum. I'm sure you can feel that. I mean, you're doing things. You've even found the plaque. Say, hey, man, the guy said the plaque is 300,000. Here go a piece of land that we can build it on. Now, what's the objection? And so you've done all that legwork to where there can't be any more no's, other than somebody's only giving you a no because they are, for lack of a better word, a racist. You've done all that. So it will happen soon. I suspect, as I predict, and you'll see it, and you'll be sitting there and you rah-rah and you sharp and you dress, you looking good and everything like that. And you say, hey man, I just happen to be running past here and saw this.
Oh man,
It's
that's
a beautiful thing.
and
And I tell you, we came to that because I looked you up, only, and then I saw what you were doing, and this really kind of came to be that this is a beautiful thing. It's funny. This is what we do here, Strong Inspiration, people. But before I get to that kind of closing, is there some story or something that I have not asked you that you wanted to share? Do you have a website or anything like that people can follow you and help you in any way, even people in Columbus, in your efforts?
Well, thank you for that. I actually have a growing Facebook group called Columbus Black History.
I love it.
And that primarily is one of my sources of where I share the stories to the Black community about where it is that they have come from. And I think what I love about where history is today, I think it's almost preserved for someone like me, is I don't focus so much on I know I talked about James Poindexter, but I don't like to focus so much on the name brands of history, because I think that's where the white counterparts have also limited the story, where they've made it appear as if, there was some Black people, it was just a few of them though. But that's how they create a way to make us feel like there's only a few in the lane, and it limits the confidence for all of us. So what I like to do is, in my history book, is talk about everyday people who made history. Your teacher who worked at the school for 50 years. Most of them retired at 30. This one wanted to go to 50 because she just loved it. Let's talk about her. We talk about the community leaders who worked in the community for 20 years for free with no grant money. Those are people who are creating history. I like, of course, to talk about the first Black mayor of Columbus, which is Mayor Coleman.
Oh, y'all had a Black mayor. Okay.
Yeah, we had our Black mayor. He was a Black mayor of Columbus for 14 years.
Okay.
And he made a major impact in the city to this very day. But that again is somebody you could Google. Could you Google the person that sowed seed into him to become a mayor?
I love it.
No, you normally can't. So those are the stories I like.
I love it. And so it's called Columbus Black History.
Columbus Black History.
That's the website.
Follow me. Yep.
I mean,
that's the Facebook group.
Yeah. And so everybody check that out, post on that. If you don't mind, what's your next move in regards to that? Can you tell us?
Sure. We've got a lot of things going on. One of my biggest things is I have a book that I'm writing right now. It's called Columbus Black History, 200 Years of Images. I'm focusing specifically on images to avoid, again, history being overcomplicated, where we literally are taking history back to elementary school. And it is pictures of everyday people that reflect that particular
I
history.
love it.
I'm also creating a children's book, Columbus Black History children's book, specifically to go into the schools so that children can begin learning now how it is that Black people have lived here since Ohio existed. I don't think that we correlate that. I think I
I'm
always wanted to
sure.
believe, yeah, I always wanted to believe that we were slaves just because I didn't get the history.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that adds a whole different confidence for a Black person. Like, no, we never was no slaves here.
I'm sure. I love it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what we're working on. And then always expanding the opportunities to the next generation by being a visionary. I am a producer of a show called Columbus Black News, where we create a lot of these conversations. And
Oh,
I have millennials that host the show and share this particular information so that we're well informed and have a resource for the Black community to grow.
I love it. Let us. What's the percentage of Blacks in Columbus?
I think it's 17%.
17%. Okay. Okay. And I thank you so very much for coming on the show. Did we give it to you, people? Did we
Well,
give
thank
it
you,
to you? Did
Anthony.
she
I
give it to you?
appreciate you having me.
She
I
had
enjoy
us.
what you're doing.
Oh man, we went around and I'm thinking and I'm saying, and then she said, let me tell you, brother, I ain't know his story. I'm an activist. That's really what you are. You are an activist. And don't get it twisted, people. She out
I
here
know
telling
history,
I
but
don't
I
know
stay
all
the
this, but I'm gonna
activism.
tell you how I want it to be told. That's a beautiful thing. Strong inspirations. Come on, hit that subscribe button. You don't have nothing else to do, people, and it don't take but 5 seconds, and it's free. Hit the like button on this video. If you don't like no other video on the channel, I'm telling you, the sister that enlightened us, because I'm sitting here saying, whoa, okay, I really dig this. Hit the like button on this video. Hit the notifications bell. When I put the videos up, you get a ding, you get something, you get an electric shot or something that says, hey, Strong Inspirations back at you once again, my friend. And then tell somebody about the channel. Tell somebody in Columbus about this sister and her efforts. This is her calling. This is what she's doing in her time. And I suspect in some respects, she's doing it for free. Boom, shakalaka. Check that out. Watch my movie, read my book. Let's look out for her book. She's got it coming out, and I know she's following through. It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. She's putting it all together and stuff like that. And that's what we do here. And to you, my sister, I say this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing and how you're doing it. Keep them people enlightened. Keep telling them this. Don't have no fear of doing it either, because God has got you. Watch. He's got you this far, and he's going to keep having you in his hand, because you're on the side of right. You ain't asking for nothing but just put a plaque up. Come on, man. You got the grass. That's all we asking. And put that plaque in the back with the underground and take it and put it in the front. How hard is that? Come on, Governor. All right, everybody. With that, I'll say bye-bye. Peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Have a good day.
You too.